The streets were quiet, too quiet for my liking. The evening air bit at my skin, the chill a reminder of how alone I felt in the dark. I adjusted my coat, tugging it tighter around me, and glanced over my shoulder. The city's hum was distant, muffled by the weight of the night. I knew these streets too well, the alleys where shadows never fully retreated, the corners that hid dangers waiting to pounce. But tonight felt different. There was something about the way the air hung, heavy with the kind of tension only certain people could create. That's when I saw him. A sleek black car rolled to a slow stop beside me, its tinted windows lowering with a hiss that seemed to echo in the silence. My pulse quickened as I recognized the figure inside, Viktor Volkov. The name itself sent a shiver down my spine. The Volkov family didn't just run the city. They owned it. And Viktor? He was the king, the one they all feared. "Lena," he said, his voice low, his gaze unblinking as it locked onto mine. I swallowed, trying to keep my composure. "What do you want, Volkov?" My voice was steady, but the uncertainty simmering under the surface betrayed me. He didn't answer right away, just studied me, as if deciding something in his mind. "A favor," he finally said, his lips curling into a barely-there smirk. "Something that requires your expertise." I stiffened, my guard going up. "I don't do favors for you." His eyes never left mine. "You will. Trust me." I could feel the pull between us, magnetic, dangerous, but I knew better than to give in. Still, my voice betrayed me. "Fine. What do you need?" And just like that, I was in his world. The mansion was colder inside, the silence almost oppressive. Victor's office, tucked away on the upper floor, smelled faintly of leather and cigars. Rich, intoxicating, and dangerous. He leaned back in his chair, his sharp gaze never straying from me as I took a seat across from him. The tension in the room felt like it could snap at any moment. "You've been doing well so far, Lena," Viktor said, his voice as smooth as velvet, but there was an edge to it. "Now I need you for something more. Delicate." I braced myself. The last time we'd spoken, I'd been forced into his world, but now it seemed like I was sinking deeper into it. "What kind of task?" I asked, trying to keep my tone neutral, though my pulse quickened. Victor's lips curled into a small, knowing smile. "A high-stakes meeting. One of my associates is making moves I don't like. I need you to attend and keep an eye on things." My stomach twisted. High stakes didn't just mean expensive suits and flashy cars. It meant power, and with power came danger. I'd spent enough time in this underworld to know that. He watched me carefully, almost as if testing me. "Don't worry, you'll be safe," he added, a flicker of something in his eyes, a hint of reassurance, if not warmth. I swallowed hard, keeping my gaze steady. "And if things go sideways?" His smile faded slightly. "We'll deal with it." There it was again. The cold, calculating Viktor that I knew so well. The one who ruled with a ruthless hand. But this time, I saw something else. A flicker of something softer, almost protective, hidden beneath the ice. It unnerved me more than I wanted to admit. I nodded slowly. "All right, I'll do it." The bond between us was uneasy, born of necessity, but it was there, fragile and uncertain, yet somehow real. And I couldn't help but wonder how long it would last before it shattered. The gala was a spectacle. Elegance and opulence dripped from every corner of the grand hall. Crystal chandeliers hung from the ceiling, casting soft light over the glittering crowd. The air buzzed with hushed conversations, champagne glasses clinking, and the soft hum of classical music. But beneath the surface there was something darker, more dangerous lurking, and I was standing right in the middle of it. Viktor Volkov stood beside me, tall and commanding in his perfectly tailored suit, his presence unmistakable. He introduced me to people I barely knew, and ones I would never forget. A senator here, a businessman there, each one with their own dangerous ties, all of them watching Viktor like he was the sun, and they were planets circling around him. Everywhere I looked, eyes followed us, his and mine. It was as if the entire room had been choreographed around his every move. But what unsettled me wasn't the respect in their gazes. It was the fear. They feared him. They feared us. And I wasn't sure if I should feel empowered or terrified. At one point, Viktor's hand brushed against the small of my back as we navigated through the crowd. His touch, light but deliberate, sent an unexpected shiver down my spine. My heart skipped, a rush of warmth flooding through me despite the chill in the air. "You look stunning," he said, his voice low enough for only me to hear. The words seemed almost out of place in the grandeur of the evening, but the way he said it, calm, controlled, there was a weight behind them, a subtle ownership that made my pulse race. I couldn't deny the way his gaze lingered on me, the unspoken tension between us growing with each passing moment. Viktor wasn't just using me for business anymore. I wasn't sure what game he was playing, but it was a dangerous one. And now, I was a part of it. The penthouse was quieter than I expected when we arrived. The city lights streamed through the floor-to-ceiling windows, casting long shadows across the sleek, modern furniture. Viktor led me in, his presence dominating the room, and I couldn't shake the weight of the evening's events. The gala had been a game of masks, but here, in the privacy of his space, I couldn't hide from what was happening between us. He motioned for me to sit on the plush sofa, but I hesitated. Viktor watched me closely, his dark eyes never leaving mine. His gaze was no longer just cold. There was something else. Something deeper. Something that felt personal. It unsettled me. "You're still thinking about the gala," he said, his voice low, almost a murmur. I crossed my arms, trying to maintain some distance, both physically and emotionally. "You're surrounded by people who fear you. I saw it in their eyes." Viktor leaned back, folding his arms as if the conversation was casual, but I could see the edge in his posture. Fear is a tool. It's how you maintain control. I swallowed, unable to keep the skepticism out of my voice. "Is that all you are? A man who controls people through fear?" For a moment, there was a flicker of something, an emotion I couldn't place, before he spoke again, quieter this time. "It's not always the way I wanted things, Lena. There was a betrayal once, someone close to me. That's what turned me into this." His words hit harder than I expected, and my walls cracked just a little. Viktor wasn't just the ruthless Mafia boss I thought he was. He was a man who'd been scarred. Without thinking, I reached out, my hand brushing his arm. The contact, soft but electric, sent a rush of heat through me. His eyes softened for the briefest of moments, and the silence between us thickened. I pulled my hand back, heart racing. This was the moment. The spark. I could feel it, growing, pulling us together. But I wasn't ready. Not yet. And yet, I knew I was already in deeper than I wanted to admit. The night air was thick with tension as we pulled into Viktor's compound, a secluded estate tucked away on the outskirts of the city. The compound had a cold, imposing presence, every corner meticulously guarded. I wasn't used to the heaviness in the air, but tonight it felt different. Dangerous. Viktor's usual calm demeanor was gone, replaced by an edge I hadn't seen before. As we stepped out of the car, the sharp sound of voices echoed from the shadows. I glanced at Viktor, confusion rising in my chest. Something was off. Before I could ask, a group of men emerged from the darkness. Strangers, men with hard faces, their eyes scanning the area like predators. They were too close, and the air around us shifted, thick with the unmistakable scent of a brewing confrontation. "We need to talk, Viktor," one of the men said, his voice low, threatening. "You've been stepping on our territory." Viktor stood tall, unflinching, but I could feel the change in him. The shift from calm to something far more dangerous. His hand moved to his side, where I knew he kept a weapon hidden beneath his jacket. I tried to back away, but Viktor's gaze snapped to mine, his eyes narrowing. "Stay close," he ordered, voice firm. The men didn't notice me at first, too focused on Viktor, but when one of them turned, I felt the weight of their scrutiny. Viktor's hand shot out, grabbing my arm and pulling me closer, his grip tight. "You're not going anywhere," he hissed under his breath. The power in his voice made my heart race, and for the first time, I realized just how far Viktor would go to protect me. He was ruthless, not just in his business dealings, but with me. As the tension escalated, I could see it in his eyes. An obsession, a fierce need to keep me safe at any cost. My heart skipped a beat. I was in too deep, tangled in a world I didn't fully understand, and it was more dangerous than I'd ever imagined. The mansion felt empty without the noise of the outside world, the only sound being the soft ticking of the clock on the wall. Viktor led me to his private study, his steps measured as though the weight of the evening's events hung heavily on his shoulders. He didn't say anything at first, his jaw clenched, his mind clearly somewhere else. I sank into one of the leather chairs, trying to shake the tension from my limbs. After the encounter with the rival faction, I couldn't remember the last time I'd been this shaken. But Viktor? He seemed untouched, almost too calm, until I saw the subtle way his hands clenched by his sides. "I thought you'd want to rest," he said quietly, moving to pour himself a drink. The sound of the ice clinking against the glass felt louder than it should have. "I'm fine," I said, though my voice felt hollow. Viktor took a sip of his drink, his eyes never leaving me. "You should have stayed behind," he muttered, more to himself than to me. "It's too dangerous for you to be involved in this world." I stared at him, surprised by his admission. Viktor Volkov, the man who controlled everything, who never showed a crack in his armor, was admitting vulnerability. I didn't know how to respond, so I remained silent. But Viktor didn't seem to need an answer. Instead, he set the glass down, his gaze darkening. "I fear losing control," he said suddenly, his voice low, raw. "The one thing that keeps everything together. Power." His words hit harder than I expected, and I found myself staring at him, feeling something stir deep inside. Pity? Maybe. But also something else. Something that made me want to get closer. To understand him, even if it terrified me. For the first time, I saw Viktor for what he truly was. Not just a ruthless mafia boss, but a man broken by the very power he had built his empire on. And suddenly, I wasn't sure if I was just a part of his game anymore. I wasn't sure if I was in control, or if I ever would be. I didn't see it coming. Not like this. The betrayal was swift. One of Viktor's closest allies, a man I'd thought I could trust, had turned on him. I'd been in the wrong place at the wrong time, caught in the web of lies and schemes that had already been set in motion before I even knew what was happening. It started with whispers, a phone call, a subtle shift in Viktor's demeanor that I knew better than to ignore. His eyes hardened, his jaw tight with the kind of tension that rippled through the room like an electric current. "Get out," Viktor had ordered me, his voice cold, clipped. "This doesn't concern you." But I couldn't move. Not when I saw the way his face twisted, the icy fury building behind his eyes. I was trapped, caught in the eye of a storm that was about to break. The traitor stepped into the room, all too confident, too sure of himself. He spoke calmly, as though nothing had changed, as though betrayal wasn't a death sentence in Viktor's world. But Viktor didn't hesitate. His hand slid beneath his jacket, pulling out a sleek black pistol, the motion so fluid it seemed rehearsed. The tension was suffocating. Viktor didn't even flinch as he pointed the gun at the traitor's chest. "You're a dead man," he said, his voice almost bored, as if this was just another routine, another threat to eliminate. I felt my breath catch in my throat. The coldness of his decision hit me like a punch to the gut. I had seen Viktor ruthless before, but never like this. He was a man of control, but the look in his eyes, the way he moved with deadly precision, it terrified me. But there was something else, too. A deep, undeniable pull. I wasn't just afraid of him. I was drawn to him, to the walls he'd built, to the way he kept everything contained. The man I was falling for wasn't the one standing in front of me now. No, this was something far darker. The villa was colder than I expected, its stone walls thick and imposing. The windows were shut tight, blocking out the world beyond, just as Viktor had intended. I'd been here for what felt like days, locked away for my own safety after the failed assassination attempt on him. But I wasn't safe. Not here. Not with him. Viktor had insisted I stay in this isolated place, away from the chaos. But it didn't feel like safety. It felt like confinement. And tonight, the tension between us was suffocating. He stood by the window, looking out over the grounds, his back rigid, as though the weight of the world was pressing on him. I couldn't take it any longer. I crossed the room and faced him, my heart pounding. "Why am I here, Viktor?" I demanded, my voice shaking. "You think locking me away is going to make me forget what's happening? You think I'm just some pawn in your game?" He didn't look at me, but I saw the muscle in his jaw tighten. "You're here because I won't risk losing you," he muttered, his words low but filled with so much tension that I could feel it in the air between us. I stepped closer, refusing to let him distance himself. "Don't play me, Viktor. You've already lost me. Or do you really expect me to stay here, in this cage, while you make decisions for both of us?" His eyes snapped to mine, and for the first time, I saw something raw in his gaze, something dangerously close to vulnerability. "I don't want you to leave," he said, his voice hoarse. The silence between us grew thick with unspoken words, and then, almost without thinking, I reached for him. My fingers brushed against his chest, sending a shockwave of heat through my body. Viktor's breath hitched, and in that moment I knew we were both teetering on the edge of something neither of us was ready to confront. I leaned in, our faces inches apart. "Where do we stand, Viktor?" I whispered. The tension was unbearable. He was close, so close, but he pulled back at the last second, his lips barely grazing mine. The almost kiss left us both breathless, but neither of us spoke. The walls between us were cracked, but they were still there, towering over us. And for the first time I realized that whatever came next, we'd have to face it together. Or not at all. The room was dark, save for the faint glow of the city lights filtering through the windows. The air was thick with the aftermath of the confrontation, gunshots, blood, and a narrow escape. Viktor had barely made it out unscathed, and I was still shaken from everything that had happened. But we were alone now, and the silence between us felt louder than any gunfire. Viktor moved across the room, his movements slow, calculated. His shirt was torn, stained with the remnants of the fight. But it didn't seem to matter. His eyes were fixed on me, a heat in them that matched the fire that had been building between us for weeks. I couldn't stand it anymore. The distance, the walls, the fear. "You're still here," he said quietly, his voice rough from the adrenaline, but there was something else in it. Something softer. Something that had been buried for too long. His gaze softened as it lingered on my face, and I felt my own resolve start to crumble. I stepped forward, the need to close the distance between us too strong to ignore. "I'm not going anywhere," I whispered. Viktor's breath caught as I reached for him, my hand trembling as it brushed against his chest. The touch was light, but it sent a wave of heat rushing through me. He didn't pull away. Instead, his hand came up to cup my face, and for the first time, there was no calculation in his touch. Just raw, unfiltered need. He leaned down, his lips brushing against mine, and all the tension, all the fear, everything we had been avoiding, poured into that kiss. It wasn't just physical. It was surrender. A surrender to everything we'd both been too afraid to admit. The night was long, and we didn't speak much. But there was an understanding now, a mutual vulnerability we hadn't shared before. In that room, we weren't the Mafia boss and the woman caught in his world. We were just two people, finally allowing ourselves to feel something real, despite everything. And though danger still loomed around us, I knew one thing. We had crossed a line we couldn't come back from. The mansion was eerily quiet, the kind of stillness that came before a storm. I stood by the window, watching the lights flicker in the distance, trying to shake the feeling that something was about to snap. Viktor had gone quiet in the hours leading up to this. Too quiet. It wasn't until the unmistakable sound of tires screeching on the gravel driveway that I realized what was coming. I turned to find him standing in the doorway, his expression unreadable. The coldness had returned, a mask he wore too easily. But his eyes, those eyes, held something else. Fear. For me. "They've made their move," Viktor said, his voice a low growl. "They'll be here soon." I swallowed hard. The stakes had never been higher. In the last few weeks, I'd been pulled deeper into Viktor's world. His power, his danger, his obsessions. But now everything was on the line. His enemies were coming for him, and if they couldn't take him down, they'd take me. "Viktor, don't do this," I whispered, my voice trembling despite my efforts to stay strong. "We can leave. We can—" "No." He cut me off sharply, his eyes flicking over to me with an intensity that made my chest tighten. "You're not leaving, not without me." He stepped toward me, his hand finding mine, gripping it tightly as though he were afraid to let go. I met his gaze, and for the first time, we both knew. This wasn't just about survival anymore. This was about us. Our love, our loyalty, the cost of everything we'd built together. I didn't know what would happen next, but I couldn't walk away. Not from him. "We fight," I said, my voice barely a whisper. And in that moment, with his hand in mine, we both chose. We chose to fight, even if it meant losing everything.